That was the best single loss by any team in the playoffs last night, the Clippers. That was a great loss. We say this all the time about football. Like, you can win a game and be concerned, right? Like, you can lose a game and go, yeah, we should have lost that game. I was talking to Michael Strahan yesterday when the Giants lost to the Patriots years ago, the final week of the season in New York. Remember, they went and played them later in the Super Bowl. OCU Manura put his arm around Michael Strahan. He said, fella, we play them again, we're beating them. They're not better than us. Like, you lose games and get a lot of confidence. If I'm a Clipper fan this morning, I feel great. Utah had 6 days off. Clippers had none. They flew yesterday or the day before yesterday. I mean, the Jazz were at home. The Jazz were rested. The Jazz had a layered game plan. Here is the Clippers schedule minutes before last night's game in the 6 days before they faced the Jazz. Now, think about this. They played a Game 5 in L.A., then a 3-hour flight to Dallas, then they played Dallas, and then a 3-hour flight back to Los Angeles, then they played Game 7, then they got back on a plane, wake up that day, they play Utah. So they were on 3 flights and played 3 games, and then they had to play in the loudest arena so far this year. It was the first time the Jazz had played full capacity, and that place was a snake pit last night. That was the toughest road game for any team. Maybe the Hawks and the Knicks, they had an argument, but there were some seats in Madison Square Garden that were not filled. That place last night was like a college arena in the Final Four. The Clippers could have easily folded last night. They had a dreadful third quarter. They could have folded last night. They were out of energy. Nope. Came roaring back. The Clippers shot a better free throw percentage last night in the Jazz. They shot a better three-point percentage last night in the Jazz. They shot a better field goal percent last night in the Jazz. And that's with Paul George stinking up the place and Kawhi being ineffective. If you're a Clipper fan, this morning I wake up and I'm like, Clippers in 6. I mean, they fell behind to Dallas 0-2, and then they won 4 of the next 5 games and kind of dominated them late. You got a bunch of factors here. Mike Conley's out. I don't know how long. Not good. He changes the pace. He's out. Number 2, Kawhi Leonard was ineffective, kind of a non-factor. Paul George, I know sometimes he struggles in the playoffs, but he was particularly bad, 4 for 17. You got only 2 Clippers were in double digits. It's the loudest home arena all year. I mean, the Clippers have been playing, marginal crowds, semi-crowds, 70% full. And by the way, then Donovan Mitchell had the greatest game of his career and the best half of basketball by any player in the NBA this year. I love Donovan Mitchell. I love Spida. Great kid, great player, huge fan. He's not going to have another half like that in the series. There's no way. And folks, here's the other thing. Quinn Snyder is one of the best coaches in the NBA, but because he coaches in Utah, we don't talk about him. Quinn Snyder's a great coach. He had 6 days to put in a game plan. He probably spent 3 on the Clippers and 3 on the Mavericks. Ty Lue had less than a day. He's on a plane. He's back home. They play a game. He's got interviews. He's got media. That's like giving Andy Reid a bye week. I mean, we always know the best football coaches when you have Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban. It's always been that way. Barry Alvarez. When you get bowl game records, Urban Meyer bowl game records, Lou Holtz bowl game records. When you give really good coaches extra time, the really good coaches take advantage of it. Quinn Snyder had like 5 days advantage, 5.5 days on Ty Lue. And so that was not a fair fight last night. That was not a fair fight. For the Clippers to lose by a shot, they took 2 shots at the end. One was blocked. One of those goes in, we're going to overtime. Next game, equally rested. The coach is equally prepared. Spida Mitchell's not doing that in the second half. Kawhi and Paul George will play better than that. Game on, series on. I like the Clippers. So I'm ashamed of myself. One of the things about this job that I think is really fun, I mean, listen, Bill Belichick struggles, we all know this, drafting players. Best football coach ever. He struggles in the draft. A lot of it's guessing. I mean, You don't get much tape on players. You don't know if he can be good in the NFL. Bill Belichick, and that's in the NFL where you get, at least multiple years of tape, is not very good in the draft. Now, there are coaches that are legendarily good in the draft. Jimmy Johnson was great with personnel. There are these coaches that are just fantastic. Jason Light, the general manager of Tampa Bay, that dude just owns the draft. Belichick, best coach ever, not great. In basketball, it's even harder. You get less tape. So I'm not going to crush a general manager. I mean, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens had 1,000 picks. They hit one home run, Jason Tatum, and 2 other doubles, Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. A lot of misses. Okay, it's hard. And I fell for Ben Simmons. I grew up with Magic Johnson. I fell for Ben Simmons. 6'11" point guard. Great defense. I mean, he's got a swagger. Great ball handler. He's got Magic Johnson's vision. He can finish at the rim. He can't shoot. I know he can't shoot. Magic wasn't a great shooter when he came in either. And I've always said I'd take Simmons over Embiid because Embiid, I know he's going to fall apart. He's got a torn meniscus now in this series. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm going to go with Embiid. I decided last night. Ben Simmons, 2 games in this series, 3 for 12 from the free throw line. Total non-factor, 35 minutes last night, 4 points, 3 shots. He just doesn't care. You know what it reminds me of? And this is something I can't stand. Indifference. Joy cares about this job. I have no problem when people make mistakes out of passion. Indifference, I hate it. Jay Cutler, Johnny Manziel, Drew Lock, Jeff George. Too cool, man. Too cool, man. It's his game, man. Cool. I like my quarterbacks to be dorks. Peyton Manning's obsessed. Russell Wilson's obsessed. Matt Stafford, get me out of here. I got to win games. You can have too cool guy. Ben Simmons is too cool. He won't work on his game. Embiid scares me to death with his body. He cares. He's productive. He's marketable. He rallies the troops. They had him on the mic last night. He is so into every possession. He cares. Ben Simmons, he's too cool. I saw a story. It's funny. I saw a story. NBA scouts were talking to Ryan Russillo, a buddy of mine, about Ben Simmons on a podcast. And we found this morning. Quote, said a scout to Ryan Russillo, Ben doesn't put in the time. Loves L.A., Hollywood guy. If he ever got serious about improving his shooting, free throws, he could be honest. He's not wired that way. Lots of cool guy with him. I swear to God, I wrote my notes before I read that. But, here's the thing with Embiid. There's one thing I'm worried about, and it's a huge thing, the injury. I admit it. We all watch these games. When big guys get hurt early, they get hurt later. It's a huge thing to worry about. But that's all I worry about with Embiid. He cares. He's productive. He's coachable. He's marketable. He's all in. He rallies the troops. He's a leader. And he's the closest thing to Shaq I've seen. But I always understood when the Lakers took Kobe over Shaq because Kobe was more obsessed with it. It's not that Shaq was indifferent. So I understood, I'm always kind of reluctant on taking the big over the wing or the guard. I really am. But not when the guard's indifferent. I'm looking at Ben Simmons' numbers last night. After I watched that game, I'm like, he's invisible. He took 3 shots. 3 shots? That's it? I mean, my bad. Like, I'll deal with a big who's going to get hurt again. But I cannot deal with indifference. I cannot deal with cool guy. You ever remember a cool guy in high school? Right now, if you're driving your car, you're at work. Think about cool guy. Cool guy in high school. You know what he is now? He's 44. He wants you to care about his golf game and fantasy team. He now works for somebody who was not a cool guy in high school. You can have cool guy. Give me uncool guy. Give me guy that cares. Embiid cares. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.